Hi, welcome to the channel. I'm DJ, and this is the second video in our Behringer Wing tutorial series. If you haven't seen the first video, I'll have that link down below, but in this video, we're going to be talking about the channel processing that's available in the console. So let's get started. On the Wing, we have two main areas where you're going to interact with channel processing. First is going to be the touch screen and its encoders along the bottom. And second is the physical channel processing section with its buttons, encoders, as well as its small screen. To view the channel processing, there are three ways to get to it. The first is to hit the home button at the top left of the touchscreen, which will bring you to the channel processing homepage. The second is to hit the view button in the physical channel processing area, which will bring you to whatever processing is active in the channel processing screen. And the other is to hit the view button on one of the fader sections, which will bring up a channel strip view of all those channels in that fader bank. And then you can just select the block for what you want to adjust and adjust it on the touchscreen. Let's look at the home page first. Starting on the left side directly under the channel number, there are 9 blocks for the regular 40 input channels and 6 for the 8 aux ends. For regular channels, the blocks are home tab, channel input, gate, EQ, compressor, pre-fader insert, what I'm calling the main assign / fader and panning block, the post-fade insert, and the sends page. Beside the gate, EQ, compressor, and both insert blocks, there's also an on and off switch that allows you to turn them on and off from the home page. Tapping any one of these 9 blocks will take you to that point in the channel strip. Now let's talk about what you can do on the home page itself. There's 5 sections in the home page that include input, filter, level, EQ, and main. In the input section, we have our input source, where we can choose from any of the different input types, as well as choosing whether the input will be a mono input or a stereo pair of inputs. On this console, stereo inputs don't have to take up 2 individual channels, such as let's say 7 and 8. They can be seen as one stereo channel on channel 7 using 2 adjacent inputs from one source like a stage box, and it only takes up 1 channel out of your total 48 instead of 2. So if you have enough inputs between stage boxes, local I/O, and USB inputs, you can have a total of 96 inputs going through 48 stereo channels. Next to the input source, we have our phantom power, preamp gain, and digital trim. Digital trim is adjusting the volume level digitally after the gain plus or minus 18 dB. Below the input source, there's a mute button. Now this mute button is a mute button for the input and not the channel, so it will not show up on the fader as muted. The next section over is our filter section, where we can turn on and off our low cut, high cut, or tilt EQ filters. The section below this is our mains routing. In this box we can see our width and pan and which of the 4 main buses the channel is being sent to. Width is used for stereo channels. You can have the left or right on the channel hard panned whenever the width is at 100%, or directly at the center at 0%, acting as if it's a mono input. And any value in between 0 and 100 will slowly mix it from hard panned to mono. You can also turn the width percentage into negatives and swap the size that the input is going to. Then there's pan, which is used for the mono channels, of course, to pan left and right. To the far right is our level section, which mimics the level of the physical fader, as well as giving you a solo button and a mute button that you can touch and engage on the screen. The EQ section is the most notable section in the home page and gives you a view of what the EQ is doing, but once you touch it, it'll take you to the EQ section itself. Now along the bottom we have the encoders. On the left we have gain and digital trim, and then on the right we have width and pan. Back to the top of the home page, we have 2 more things. The first is the customize button, which allows you to change the name, scribble strip icon, and the scribble strip light color. The next is the tags. These tags are one way to assign a channel to the DCAs or mute groups. Now let's move from the home page to the input page. In the input page, we see the phantom power, gain, and digital trim like we did on the home page, but we also see our alternate input. This alternate input can be chosen from any of the same input sources as our primary input, and it can be used as a backup input on stage for something, or it can be used for a virtual sound check using the console as an audio interface through the USB port on the back, or using the Wing Live card to play back audio from the multi-track recording on the SD cards. In the trim and balance sections, we see our digital trim in a large view, as well as at the bottom right of that, we have our phase invert button. To the right, we have input delay. If you wish to enable this, it goes from 0 meters to 8 meters, and at the top of that, it'll show you the equivalent distance in feet and time in milliseconds. The max time is 23.32 milliseconds on inputs. And above that, just like on the home page, we see our filters. Again, we can turn those on and off from here. Looking at the physical channel processing, we can control a few things from this page. By pushing the input button once or adjusting the encoder above, it'll pull up the input window on the small LCD screen. Tapping through the input button to cycle through, we can go through gain, trim, and balance, and you can adjust these with the encoder above. When you're on the gain section, you can actually hold it down and it'll engage phantom power. Hold it down again and it'll turn phantom power off. Right beside input is the filter button. Tapping this button or adjusting the encoder will bring up the filter section. And you can tap through and see your different filters that we have. So right here we have low cut, high cut, and tilt EQ. Now on each of these, if you hold down the filter button on the different sections, you can engage the different filters. Next up is our gate page. At the top left, there's an on and off switch, just like on the home page. And linked to the encoders, we have all of our parameters, which are gate, ratio, range, attack, hold, and release. Threshold and envelope parameters can also be adjusted by touching and sliding their different points on the screen. In the top right is key source for if you want to sidechain the gate to a different channel, and that can be any one of the 40 regular channels in the console. Just below that is the key filter. There are 4 different types of filters for this: flat, which does nothing, low pass, high pass, and band pass. Now something new with the Wing is the option to use emulated famous analog gates, as well as changing it to be the ducker, or we also have the option to use some other compressors or de-essers on this, instead of having to use one of the effect slots like on the M32. The physical gate controls that we have access to are threshold, ratio, range, and attack. And on any of these, you can hold down the gate button and it'll turn the gate on or off. Moving on to the EQ page. Just like on the gate, at the top left is the on and off switch. The default for the EQ is Behringer's Wing EQ. And just like on the gate, we can emulate some famous EQs, such as an SSL EQ and 5 others. The Wing EQ is a standard 6-band parametric EQ with low shelf, low, low mid, high, and high shelf. The 4 center bands are labeled as 1 through 4, as they're not limited to a certain frequency range for each. To adjust these, you can either touch and drag on the screen itself, or use the encoders at the bottom to adjust gain, Q, and frequency. Looking at the physical controls, the 4 encoders at the bottom labeled 1 through 4 correspond to those bands, and depending on which parameter is selected, gain, width, or frequency, that's what those encoders will control. If you press the shift button to the left of the encoders, that will turn encoders 1 and 4 into the low and high shelf knobs, and you can control gain and frequency on those. Back on the touchscreen at the top right, we have the control section for our filters, where we can adjust the frequency and swap out the tilt EQ for a few different things. In the top middle, we have this mix knob. The knob at 0% will have the EQ turned off, and at 100%, the EQ will be as what you originally set it at, and any value in between will slowly mix it from no EQ changes to full change. This will also go up to 125%, which will exaggerate the EQ more than you have it set. Next section is the compressor. Just like the gate and EQ, we can have multiple different emulated compressors, such as the LA2A or an SSL compressor. Like on the gate as well, we can sidechain this to any one of the 40 regular input channels. Also, we can filter the input, so we can have the flat, the low pass, the high pass, or the band pass. And this will of course just keep certain frequencies from engaging the compressor. Like on the gate, we have all of our parameters on the encoders at the bottom of the touchscreen, which are threshold, ratio, knee, attack, hold, and release. And on the physical controls, we have threshold, ratio, attack, and release. The next page is the pre-fader insert. I'm gonna skip both inserts in this video and talk about them more when I cover effects in a different video. The next is our main bus area. In this area, not much changes from what we see in the homepage section. The only difference is we can turn on and off the channel going to different main bus sections. This is something I'll dig into deeper later on, but basically what it can be used for, we have 4 main buses, and if you're doing a broadcast mix just off the main left and right, you can have all your channels sending to main bus 1, that can be your house mix, and have all but maybe your Spotify channel being sent to main bus 2, and so your Spotify will go to main bus 1, which will be your house, but main bus 2 will be going to your live stream, and Spotify won't go to it. Then of course, we also have our panning and width, and then we also see the level of the channel again. And next is the post-fader insert. Like I said, I'll cover this in the effects video. And then the last page is the bus page, and this is what I'll also cover in a separate video. I'll talk about this one when I talk about making monitor mixes using send-zone faders, as well as the different settings we can have for the buses. The last thing I want to talk about is the order of the channel strip itself. There's an edit button below the on and off buttons on the home page, and using this allows you to change the position of the gate, EQ, compressor, and pre-fader insert, so you can choose wherever you want to set these. So if for the gate you change it out for a de-esser, you can move it down the chain and place it in a different spot. That's gonna be it for this video, and like I said, I'll cover the inserts and buses in separate videos, so if you want to continue watching, I'll have those videos linked down below, as well as the playlist with the rest of the videos. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.